The Seahawks have been great in primetime under Pete Carroll and will need to be again to avoid an 0-2 start. These are the players, matchups and coaching decisions beat writer Bob Condotta will be watching. Here's a look at the Seahawks' second game of the season Monday night at Chicago. Continuing what we started last week, I'll review the game the day after through the lens of this preview. The setup, simply put, a must-win game for both teams if they are to harbor legitimate playoff hopes after each lost their opener last week. Teams that start out 0-2 have roughly an 8% chance of making the playoffs. Put another way, only 6 of the 108 teams to make the playoffs the past 9 seasons started 0-2. At least Seattle will have gotten 25% of its road games out of the way following Monday. The Seahawks also started 0-2, both on the road, in 2015 before rallying to earn a playoff spot. But this feels like it might be a harder hole to climb out of this season. Matchup to watch: Seattle right tackle Germain Ifedi versus Chicago defensive end Khalil Mack. Yep, Ifedi was the focus of our matchup to watch last week against Denver and Von Miller. But he is no less in the eye of the storm this week against Mack, the 2016 NFL Defensive Player of the Year who had a smashing debut with the Bears last week with a sack and an interception return for a touchdown. As Seattle coach Pete Carroll noted this week, Mack's game is a little more about strength and power while Miller's was based more on speed. Maybe that will help Ifedi, who Carroll said played better than might have generally been perceived, pointing out one of the sacks he was blamed for by many was more the fault of Russell Wilson for running into Miller's path. Still, another road game against an elite pass rusher will be a stiff test. Players to watch: Seattle linebackers Michael Kendricks, Austin Calitro and Shaquem Griffin. Some combination of those three, and maybe all three depending on how they are used, will be called on to replace starting middle linebacker Bobby Wagner and weak side linebacker KJ Wright, who are each ruled out Saturday. The Seahawks have not played a complete game without both Wright and Wagner since Wagner was drafted in 2012. It was ugly enough last season when Wright missed a home game against the Rams and Wagner started but played hobbled before leaving in the third quarter as Los Angeles ran at will on Seattle to win 42-7. The best guess is that Calitro, who has played in just one NFL game, starts in the middle and Kendricks, who joined the team officially Friday, on the weak side. As he did in the second half last week, Griffin could play on passing downs. Either way, it's hard to imagine anything replicating the combo of a healthy Wright and Wagner. The biggest challenge is being right, Carroll said. Those guys have been with us a long time and they make a lot of great decisions and they're in the right spots and they fit really well. It's the discipline of the scheme and we're a fairly simple system that we play with and we expect these guys to play right play after play for whole ball games. That's the challenge, for the guys to just be disciplined enough to be on the demands of the fits and the things they have to do in the running game and all that, coaching decision. To watch: how committed does Seattle stay to the run? Both Carroll and offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer said the Seahawks' 16 running plays, and just 14 by the tailbacks, was not enough. So expect the Seahawks to try to greatly increase that total against the Bears. The problem is doing so successfully. The Bears had a solid run defense last year, and in case you haven't heard, have since added Mack. Chicago allowed just 69 yards and 3.8 yards per carry last week against the Packers at Lambeau Field. So Seattle might be challenged to really stick with the run. The Seahawks, though, are likely to let Chris Carson have the bulk of the carries after rookie Rashad Penny had just 8 yards on 7 carries last week, and maybe letting one back get comfortable will help. This feels like the kind of game where Seattle is simply going to have to force the issue. The X factor: Seattle's brilliance in primetime under Carroll. The Seahawks are the first of April 22 in primetime under Carroll and 7-1 on Monday night, stats that seem to fly in the face of Carroll's oft-stated philosophy of treating every game the same. Instead, the Seahawks under Carroll have usually risen to the occasion in big games. But like a lot of things, that began to slip a little last season as the Seahawks lost their lone Monday night game in 2017, a 26-24 home defeat against the Falcons. Seattle also has benefited greatly by playing many of those games at home. Seattle is 14-2 in primetime games at home under Carroll, 8-1 on the road. Player WHO could surprise receiver David Moore. With Doug Baldwin out, the Seahawks are going to need the rest of their receivers to step up. The onus largely will fall on the veteran trio of Tyler Lockett, who figures to get the bulk of the snaps in the slot, Brandon Marshall, making a return to another of his former teams, and Jaron Brown. But maybe this is a game where Moore, who was one of the breakout stars of the offseason, finally gets going as he figures to have an increased role in the game plan. Moore has played in only 2 games and has yet to make a catch. It'll be a good sign for the offense if he finally gets in the statistical column Monday night. Key stat: 2 for 12. That was Seattle's third down conversion rate last week, which all involved cited as one issue in getting the running game going. Seattle simply had trouble moving the ball consistently, and instead got 185 of its 309 yards on just 5 plays. Seattle ran 55 plays overall. 4 of the third down Seattle didn't convert were of 9 yards or more. But Seattle also failed to convert 4 of 5 yards or less on which it called passing plays on each. Seattle is going to have to get more continuity to its offense this week. The final word: I picked the Seahawks last week thinking the edge at quarterback would override any of the advantages Denver might have. But all the injuries to key guys as well as a second consecutive road game with a young team still finding its way, and in a tough venue on a Monday night, seems like a lot to overcome. Bears 24, Seahawks 16.